So I just wanted to shed light on this case because it
Mm.
is Human International Rights Day and week, and this is another blasphemy case. And the reason it's so sad is because this now, like by the end of by the beginning of 2022, um, this case is still like there's been no actual verdict on it, so he's just languishing on death row. So I'm just going to read this article and then I'll give you guys a bit of an explanation. But another prisoner of conscience falls victim to Pakistan's draconian blasphemy laws. Junaid is one of 40 people convicted of this charge waiting on death row. After 6 years in solitary confinement in Multan, Pakistan, Junaid Hafeez, a 33-year-old Fulbright scholar and lecturer, was handed a death sentence in December 2019 for allegedly defiling the name of Prophet Muhammad. Junaid's father, Hafeez al-Nasir, attributes the blasphemy charges to opposition his son faced from Islamist clerics over his progressive teachings while lecturing in the English department at Bahuddin Zakaria University in 2011. How do you say that? Is it
Yeah, no, you were almost there. Bahauddin Zikriya.
Bahauddin? Okay.
Bahau.
So, and guys, Junaid has literally been in solitary confinement for the entire time, which can you imagine the toll that's taking on his like actual mental health? And I mean, not just physically deteriorating, but mentally deteriorating. The clerics led a campaign to expel and replace Junaid at the university. Their tactics included a strike and distributing pamphlets calling for his expulsion and hanging. Junaid's housing and teaching contracts were later withdrawn, and the campaign culminated in his arrest for allegedly posting blasphemous content on social media. Few lawyers in Pakistan will agree to represent blasphemy defendants, as Haris and I just mentioned, because of the threats posed to their lives by their religious right. After his first lawyer quit, the second to represent Junaid, Rashid Rahman, told the BBC that representing a blasphemy defendant is like walking into the jaws of death. I literally could not have put it better myself. Rahman was shot and killed in his chambers in 2014 after being threatened openly in court for representing Junaid. So this is the fate that the lawyers endure in Pakistan for trying to represent somebody who is otherwise, for all intents and purposes, in the 21st century, sanctioned to a stupid law that just should not be there. And this is really, really important, Haris. This is what I actually wanted to talk to you about today, because this is crazy. When I read it, I was like, how are you even going to progress legally? How is there going to be a chance for these acquittals to actually like be more probable? Like Asia Bibi and stuff were just more like exceptions to the rule rather than the rule itself. Do you know what I mean? So under Pakistan's penal code, any mention or repetition of blasphemous content itself constitutes blasphemy. Do you understand the severity of that? Like if you said something seemingly blasphemous, I can't even repeat it or begin to address what you've said, because by me doing so, that in itself is blasphemous.
But it's also a good thing as well. You know why? And
Why?
and they will be forced to make these changes because there's so many clerics who are responding to me. And there's one funny clip as well. We're going to respond later. But there's so many local Pakistani clerics who respond to me by talking about some issue, and in a pretty frank language. And we'll show that in the later segment. But you know, so I said it before, and I think a lot of other people say that as well. When we talk about Muslim victims of Islam, a lot of them are actually clerics themselves. I've got some anecdotal stories that I heard over the past week from these own clerics themselves. So yeah, anyway, but carry on. But this is a very sad case of Junaid Hafeez. He was a Fulbright scholar in the United States, as you know. He did his, I think, MPhil in a master's in English literature. Could have had any job anywhere in the world.
But chose to come back. Yeah.
And not even Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad. Not that those cities are any good, but they're just better than. He went to Multan, Bahauddin.
Or one is safer than the other, is what you're trying. Yeah.
And because he went back to his hometown and he wanted to do good there and wanted to enlighten people.
Yeah, exactly. In his own words, he says that. I mean, listen to this. This is why it's like so heart-wrenching. He goes, well, obviously, so basically what we were talking about means that in court, the purported evidence for Junaid's guilt cannot be discussed and examined effectively. Check this. Obviously, this is nothing new. This happens all the time. After the death sentence was announced, prosecution lawyers handed out sweets celebrating the decision as a religious triumph. So obviously, as Haris said, he came back, a Fulbright scholar, studied in America, did his thing, studied English and theater. And basically, wanted to come back to his home country and make a difference for the greater good, for the betterment of society.
Greater good.
I had an urge to do something socially useful in Pakistan, something that hadn't been done before. Junaid had earlier quit graduate medicine to pursue literature. Through poetry, you can escape, he said. You can see a different vision for the world. And can you imagine this man's vision, like literally his peripheral vision for the last couple of years in a cell? Like, can you imagine how small that cell would be? And probably the only thing that's keeping him going
Oh
is
yeah.
potentially his poetry, because
But also keeping him alive as well. I think that the reason why they put them in solitary confinement is because if they release them in the normal prison population, then someone might want to go to
do
heaven.
it themselves. Yeah, exactly, that's the thing. Oh, and actually, okay, yeah, so I mean that this is it, but basically, guys, this is really it's the need of the hour to focus on cases like this, because as Haris mentioned before, there's yet to be an execution for blasphemy, yet Junaid is actually one of the 40 current people languishing on death row under the charge of blasphemy. So it's really important that we keep his case in the limelight and we put pressure on them to release him and use this case of Priyantha Kumara as that watershed moment to like push these public interest cases and move the Pakistani narrative along. But sorry, yeah, I was going to say something to you. Actually, I completely forgot.
With this,
Yeah,
if you're done with this, so we'll talk about this.
yeah.
That exmuslim.org have the best persecution tracker map, so you can actually have a look. This is all these people are being persecuted in the name of Islam, and you can see Pakistan right here. I think all amounts to 68 people, which is blasphemy, mostly blasphemy, not even apostasy. So you can go and look at these ones individually, all these cases. I think Junaid Hafeez is in there as well. Shagufta and these guys were sentenced to death, but they were recently released. I think I need to tell them to update that.
I think somebody actually really kindly sent me a link on Twitter as well, and I'm just going to post the website here, but I think it's also like a real-time, or don't quote me on the real-time thing, but I think it's pretty like effective. It's a violence registered tracker in Pakistan as well for like exactly what's happening against the minority. Yeah.
There you go. This is in the south, because this is Junaid Hafeez. So his case is there as well. And what Nuria just explained to you was just one of this many cases in Pakistan alone. Total amounts to 68, I believe, or maybe no more. 68 plus 8, what's that? 76 and 78. 78 cases in Pakistan that ex-MNA is tracking, at least. So
this was such a good initiative, by the way, on their part. Like
that was a good initiative.
These kind of things. I just posted the specific Pakistan one in the chat as well. Between these, like this will tell you the extent of what's happening and the different minorities involved. And if it takes like a case of a foreigner, like in this case, to make it insanely mainstream, then obviously do everything you can to highlight all the other cases that, you know, just aren't as they don't make it easily to the forefront of the news. So these kind of websites are so crucial. I think XMNA was one of the first to do something like this, right? Specifically,
it's been out for about a year now. I don't know if they were the first one.
And it's constantly like a work in progress. I always hear them saying they're trying to make it way more like up to date and real timey and reflective of like just the whole world.
Pakistan is number one in this, not number one in science or education or women's health or children's health or whatever. No, number one in blasphemy and persecution in the name of religion.
If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone.